The house was dark. The front door was locked. Adam went to the back. The kitchen door was locked too. He tried the windows, locked and curtained. Where were they? Had they left without him? Had something happened? He went around to the front again, yelling now, banging on the door. Mom, B, Mom! The door opened a crack. Who are you? A voice whispered. Where's my mother? He tried to push into the house. It was his house. Where's my sister? Who are you? Shh! A light flickered. He saw the shadow of a face. Who are you? He said again. Then another voice, a voice he recognized. It's Adam. Let him in, Janet. It was Mrs. Parker, their neighbor, and the woman holding the door against him was another neighbor, Mrs. Collins. Oh, it's Adam, she said. She was holding a golf club like a weapon. All that shouting, it sounded like Japanese to us, Adam. She was still whispering. We've been hearing so many things on the radio. Mrs. Parker pushed her aside. Janet, will you stop telling him stories and let him in? Go tell Marilyn her son is home. Our little hero is back. Is something wrong? He said. Is Mom okay? She's putting B in her pajamas. Mrs. Parker tugged his arm. She's been worried sick about you, Adam. He stumbled into the living room. It was crowded with women and children, some of them holding shovels and sticks. It was so spooky. A flashlight played over the ceiling. Everything suddenly seemed unfamiliar, as if he had been away so long he had forgotten where he lived and he had walked into the wrong house. Then B came flying at him, and his mother was there too, grabbing him and holding him so tight it hurt. Where were you? She said. All day, this whole terrible day, I've been waiting. I've been waiting to hear from you, bombs falling, your father out there, and you, God only knows where. She pushed him away. Do you know what kind of day this has been for me? She sank into a chair. Mom, he didn't know how to explain, even how to begin to explain. I'm sorry, Mom. Sorry, she said. He picked up B and held her. Did you eat your candy? A dumb thing to say, but it was all he could think of. I saved you a bite. You're a sailor? She she took his cap off and put it on her head. His mother was sitting there, her hand over her mouth. Mom, I'm sorry. He looked around helplessly. He wanted to tell her everything that had been shot and about his father's ship, but he couldn't. Not now. What are all these people doing, Mom? We're defending ourselves. She picked up a hammer from the floor. Ridiculous, isn't it? Adam, you smell. What is that? Probably oil, he said. Oil? Where were you? I'll tell you. He was so tired now, couldn't speak. He just managed to scrub up and change clothes, and then he fell on his bed. He didn't think he'd sleep at all, but when he woke up, all the other people had left. B was asleep, and his mother was sitting in the dark on one of B's little chairs by the front door. He sat down on the floor next to her. The door was open, and they watched the flashes of gunfire and tracers, like shooting stars in the sky. After a while, she said, Now, tell me where you were all day. I started out fishing, he said. Fishing? You didn't say that in your note. I went with Davy, the boy from my class. The Japanese boy? Yes. All right, then what? Were you fishing the whole day? We went to Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor? It took her only a moment to absorb it. Absorb it. Pearl Harbor? You were there? All day. He had been pretty steady. Well, he had vomited once. Now, though, with his mother's hand on his shoulder, his voice trembled, and it made him angry. He didn't want to break down. Yes, he said. Yes, we were at Pearl. We were on the water when it began. He wanted to tell her everything, wanted her to admire him, how he had seen so much, so many terrible things. But he kept hearing his father say, Not in front of your mother. There were things in the world, things that happened, that you didn't talk about in front of women. He tried to sort out what he could say and what he couldn't say. We found a rowboat, he began, and then he couldn't stop. It all came out. Well, almost all. How they were in the water when the attack began, in the torpedo bombers, in Martin's wound, and how Davy got beaten. He stopped, thinking about how he had tried to push Davy out of the boat. How could he tell his mother that? His mother was smoking, something she rarely did. Go on, she said. I know anyway. I'm not going to fall apart. So he told her about the ships on fire, the Oklahoma tipped over, and how he was on the West Virginia when the bombing started. Again, and about the launch and the men they'd fished out of the harbor. He didn't speak about the Arizona. He knew what he had seen, but by not saying the words, he could almost believe, he could hope, that it might still not be true. And what about your father's ship? She said. Did you see it? And again, she said, I know. I saw the planes. Everybody in Honolulu knows what happened. The whole fleet is gone. Not the whole fleet. Your father's ship. His ship is gone. Mom, we don't know anything for sure. There were a lot of survivors. Dad could have been on another ship. He could be all right, she said, and closed her eyes for a moment. You're right. I won't know anything for sure until I hear it from the Navy. It was only later, when he asked her to look at his back, that she broke down. What is this? She cried. It's only a scratch, Mom. No, your back is really bruised. The peroxide she dabbed on his wound stung and he winced. Sorry, she said. How did this happen? Adam, I want to know. Mom, don't get upset. It was a bullet. They strafed the rowboat and a bullet? They shot you? She started crying. I can't stand it. I just can't stand it.